Oh, isn't that Lindsay Morgan? The reason I inadvertently turned around at that voice was because it drained the blood from my face, reminding me of the despairing marriage life I had with its owner. When I turned around, there was my ex-husband with an unpleasant smirk on his face, and a young woman standing close to him. The very person who plunged me into despair in my first marriage is now right in front of me. Long time no see. Meeting like this here, who would have thought? Could you be the ex-wife? Nice to meet you. The woman standing next to my ex-husband spoke in a high-pitched, nasal voice. He pulled her closer to his shoulder and continued. This is my current wife. Unlike you, she's young and cute, right? As I silently tried to leave, my ex-husband grabbed me and looked me up and down. Hey, you're a single, jobless, poor person. This is what happens when you don't serve me properly. Serves you right. Oh no. That's too much. But it's true, so it can't be helped. I was so angry I almost punched him, but I clenched my fist and somehow restrained myself. However, I had to say something back. I couldn't calm down otherwise. Turning slowly back to them, I asked in a calm voice. Excuse me, but whom are you referring to? I am Lindsay Morgan. I'm in my second year of marriage with Phil. Actually, I'm divorced. Before meeting Phil, I was married once. My first marriage was so painful to recall. My partner at that time was Joseph Cohen, whom I met at a small company I joined as a fresh graduate. Joseph was my mentor, full of masculinity and seemed reliable. Having no significant dating experience back then, I was overjoyed when he asked me out, and our relationship started quickly. However, I was a bit concerned about Joseph's overbearing nature. When we dined out, he was rude to the waitstaff, and he got annoyed when I talked to other male colleagues for work. Still, love is blind. When he proposed in our second year of dating, I decided to marry Joseph. He insisted, so I quit my job to become a full-time housewife. But married life was nothing like I had dreamt. Joseph's so-called masculinity was just domineering and male chauvinism. You're a housewife, so make everything at home perfect. Of course, Joseph never helped with household chores, not even a little. No matter how hard I worked at home, he never offered a kind word. Instead, he micromanaged everything, from finances to how I should do housework. Even in such circumstances, I worked hard every day as a housewife. One winter, 3 months after we got married, I caught a terrible cold and was bedridden from morning. I had a high fever over 100 degrees, dizzy, and couldn't do any housework. When Joseph came home from work and saw me in bed, he clearly looked disgusted. I'm home. Hey, why are you lying down? Welcome back, Joseph. I have a fever of over 100 degrees. I think I caught a cold. Despite my explanation, Joseph, who hadn't listened, looked around the house and became furiously red-faced. What's this? You haven't done any laundry or cleaning. I've been feeling sick since morning. I was in bed, so I couldn't do anything. What an excuse. You're a housewife, aren't you? He yelled at me and ripped off my blanket. What about my dinner? Don't tell me you haven't prepared it. Get it ready now. I told you, I have a fever of over 100 degrees. I can't do it. Even though I pleaded with tears, Joseph Cohen seemed unmoved. Forcibly made me stand up and shoved $10 into my hand. Then go buy something right now. Hurry up. But it's only for me. You slacked off on your housework, so don't think you get to eat dinner. Go buy it now. Saying this, he grabbed the collar of my unsteady self, dragged me to the entrance, and threw me outside, opening the front door. In the cold that seemed ready for snow, I was put outside in my pajamas and bare feet. I knew I probably wouldn't be let back in unless I bought something. I went to a nearby store and managed to buy some food. As soon as I entered the house and the entrance, I collapsed. Joseph looked at me coldly, without saying a word, snatched the freshly bought food from my hand, and started eating it in front of the TV. I lay collapsed on the cold floor by the entrance. I could hear Joseph laughing while watching TV, and realized tears were streaming down my cheeks. I didn't divorce him despite such circumstances because of my father, who had celebrated my marriage as if it was his own. My mother passed away due to illness when I became a junior high student. Since then, it had been just my father and me. He ran a small stationery shop, and although life was always tight, he loved and cherished me, making my days happy. My father had said with tears during my wedding, "Now I can rest easy. Be happy." But I couldn't disappoint him by divorcing within less than 6 months of marriage. I thought everything would work out if I just endured. Joseph's domineering behavior continued, but I kept enduring and continued the marriage. About a year after the marriage, the worst happened. I found out my beloved father had cancer. Moreover, it was progressive cancer, and he had to be hospitalized. Such a thing. Father. I didn't notice at all. My father, lying quietly on the hospital bed, had lost a lot of weight since I last saw him. Yeah, I didn't notice either. Seems there's nothing to be done now. All I could do was cry at my father's quiet words. Wiping my tears, my father gently said, "Hey. Are you happy, Lindsay? With your marriage?" Caught off guard, I had no choice but to lie. I couldn't worry my father, who was seriously ill. "Yes. I'm happy. Joseph and I are getting along well." "Then that's good." Thinking back, my father might have had some thoughts at that time, but he didn't say anything more. In addition to housework, I now had to support my father's hospital life, becoming busier. I used to spend the whole day on housework to avoid Joseph's criticism. But with time spent at the hospital, it wouldn't be the same. So I decided to ask Joseph for help. "Joseph, could you possibly come with me to visit my father?" "Why should I?" Joseph frowned as if I'd asked him something terribly unpleasant. "You're my husband. I think just showing your face would make my father happy." "What are you talking about? The idea of seeing a dying old man is just disgusting." I was shocked at his blunt words, wondering if that was really what he thought. Without caring about my surprise, Joseph continued, "Instead of that, don't slack off on housework. Don't even think about using a dying old man's hospital visit as an excuse." Joseph, with a frown and an annoyed expression, vented his anger on me and then went to take a bath. Afterward, my father's condition worsened, and I spent more time at the hospital. Still, Joseph, who did nothing to help me, kept blaming me for slacking off on housework. One day, I told him I had to be at the hospital all day. It was the day my father was scheduled for surgery. Joseph became furious upon hearing my story. "You have responsibilities as a wife. Don't joke around. It's the day of my father's surgery. It can't be helped." "Then what about me? What about meals? Laundry and cleaning? It's just for one day. You could manage that yourself." As I said this with all my heart, Joseph let out a big sigh, pulled out a piece of paper from his bag, and showed it to me. It was a divorce paper, already filled out on Joseph's part, even with his signature. Why? Why a divorce paper? Exactly. It's a divorce paper. You're supported by me but won't even do the minimum housework. I'm divorcing you. It's not just about today. It's my father's surgery. And I'm the only family he has. So what? That's irrelevant to me. Whether your old man is having surgery or not, if you don't do housework as a wife, it's divorce. Think about it. After half yelling this, Joseph left the divorce paper on the table and went to work. I was stunned by the unexpected divorce paper. But there was no option not to accompany my father on his surgery day. When my father woke up after the surgery, I was crying by his bedside. "Dad, you're awake." Realizing my father was watching, I hastily wiped away my tears, and he spoke to me gently. "Lindsay, isn't your current life really tough?" "It's okay. Tell me the truth." "Sorry, Dad. I know you were so happy about my marriage. But I might get divorced. I'm really sorry." I clung to my father like a small child and cried. While crying, I told him about my married life. After listening quietly, my father said to me, "Lindsay, there's something I've always kept secret." Actually, I was so shocked by what my father told me that I zoned out for a while. When I got home that day, Joseph, red-faced with anger, was waiting for me in the living room. "You went to the hospital despite what I said?" "Without doing any housework. I did go." "Humph. That means divorce. Write on the divorce paper. Quickly." Joseph rushed me to sit at the living room table, pointed at my section on the divorce paper, and shouted, "Write," pushing me to the edge. I was scared, but I took a deep breath to calm down and then asked, "I'm taking care of my dad. Are you really going to leave me in such a tough situation?" "So what? Whether the old man dies and you're left alone, it's irrelevant to me. You're really a useless wife. I don't need you." In the end, I couldn't bring myself to talk anymore, quietly signed the divorce paper, and left the house that day. As I was leaving, Joseph shouted at me, "I never want to see your face again. Get out, you worthless wife." I went back to my family home and stayed with my hospitalized father. However, he passed away within 3 months. After the funeral, when I had calmed down a bit, a lawyer came to see me. "I've come to discuss the inheritance. Your father had asked me to do this." Hearing this, I remembered what my father had told me on the day of the surgery. "Lindsay, I've kept it a secret, but I've been dealing with cryptocurrencies and stocks for about the last 10 years. "What? Why are you saying this now?" "So, there's a significant amount of money. When I die, that money will be inherited by you, Lindsay. So even if you get divorced, you can live. It's okay to get divorced. Have a happy life. Dad, all I want is for you to be happy. Make sure to choose your path carefully." Thanks to what my father told me, I was able to stay calm even when pressured to divorce. However, when the lawyer explained the details of my father's inheritance, I was stunned for a while. Incredibly, even after considering inheritance tax, I was left with $3 million. Furthermore, there were several pieces of real estate. I had thought my father was just a small stationery shop owner, but it seems he had a talent for asset management. With the lawyer's guidance, I completed the necessary procedures and gratefully received my father's inheritance. Later, I met my current husband, Phil. Born into a family of landowners, he was the one who effortlessly solved the real estate management problems I was facing. Initially just a business relationship, Phil asked me out. He earnestly requested a relationship with the intention of marriage. And as we dated, I found myself attracted to his capable and kind nature. I decided to remarry, and now I'm living a happy married life. As I was thinking about spending a peaceful and happy life with my beloved Phil, I had the worst possible reunion at a real estate office. The person I ran into was my ex-husband, Joseph. "Oh, isn't that Lindsay Morgan?" The reason I inadvertently turned around at that voice was that it drained the blood from my face, reminding me of the despairing marriage life I had with its owner. When I turned around, there was my ex-husband with an unpleasant smirk on his face, and a young woman standing close to him. Long time no see. Meeting like this here, who would have thought, right? Could you be the ex-wife? Nice to meet you. The woman standing next to my ex-husband spoke in a high-pitched, nasal voice. He pulled her closer to his shoulder and continued. This is my current wife, Gina. Unlike you, she's young and cute, right? Joseph proudly introduced the woman beside him, but I remained expressionless and said, Is that so? Well, I have some business to attend to. What's that? You bump into your old husband by chance and act like that? Can't you at least talk for a bit? Even as I remained silent, my ex-husband grabbed me and looked me up and down. You're all dressed up, aren't you? What are you doing in a real estate office? Looking for a cheap apartment to live in alone? That's none of your concern, is it? Then, looking at the bag I was carrying, Gina exclaimed. Hey. That bag she's carrying is super expensive, right? Joseph said his ex-wife was unemployed. Gina, you're silly. That's a fake. She's poor but wants to show off. Right. Oh my gosh, that's so tacky. As Gina laughed cheerfully and Joseph smiled at her, I watched them with dismay. Sensing my feelings, Joseph turned his gaze back to me and said, Hey, you're a single, jobless, poor person. This is what happens when you don't serve me properly. Serves you right. Oh no. That's too much. But it's true, so it can't be helped. I was so angry I almost punched him, but I clenched my fist and somehow restrained myself. However, I had to say something back. I couldn't calm down otherwise. Turning slowly back to them, I asked in a calm voice. Excuse me, but whom are you referring to? Huh? At that moment, an executive from the real estate company came over and respectfully bowed, addressing me. I'm terribly sorry to keep you waiting. Ms. Morgan, I understand you're here to consult about the apartment building you own. Yes, thank you. Could you give me just a moment? I ran into an old acquaintance. Of course, take your time. Joseph and Gina were left with their mouths agape, looking foolishly between me and the executive. What? Your own apartment building. To the finally spoken words of Joseph, I answered with an exasperated feeling. Yes. I'm now the owner of several properties. I'm here today for a contract regarding that. You? A real estate owner? Seeing Joseph completely unable to grasp the situation, I decided to enlighten him. You always look down on my dad. But he made several million in stocks and owned several properties. I inherited all of my father's estate. You're lying. You kept the inheritance a secret from me. You belittled my father and unilaterally abandoned me, remember? Joseph, incredulous and blinking rapidly, suddenly started to prostrate himself before me. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Lindsay. I'll break up with this woman right away, let's remarry. Hey. Joseph. What are you saying? Gina, shocked by Joseph's behavior, started to get angry. I watched them expressionlessly, but Joseph continued to plead. The company I worked for is going bankrupt. I'm in trouble, I don't have any money. What? I'm hearing this for the first time. Shut up. Just be quiet. Please, Lindsay. We once vowed love to each other. As Joseph reached out to me, a commanding voice was heard. Do not touch my wife. Who are you people? It was my current husband, Phil. Arriving late due to work, Phil gently embraced my shoulder and glared at Joseph and Gina. Tall and wearing a custom-made suit, Phil undoubtedly looked like a wealthy and composed man. Seemingly intimidated, Joseph muttered in a small voice. Wife. Lindsay remarried. I've been remarried for a long time. To a man who is far more financially capable and respectable than you. Why? Joseph hung his head in disappointment, but his next words took me by surprise. Then lend me some money, Lindsay. Or rather, give me some. Just a mere $10,000 will do. You're rich now, right? Shocked by his shameless request, I found myself shouting. Who would give money to someone who made me suffer so much? Never show your pathetic face again. Get out of here with that woman right now. Shocked by being yelled at, Joseph stood there with his mouth agape. Realizing he had no chance of getting money from me, he turned to Gina. Extended his hand, and whispered. Let's go, Gina. What? Are you crazy? Don't touch me. Gina lashed out at Joseph. Unbelievable. Keeping the company's bankruptcy a secret. You were just after my dad's money because he's the president. No. I love you, Gina. Believe me. You just said you'd break up with me right away. Don't mess with me. I'll divorce you. Don't contact me again. I'll leave it to my lawyer. With that, Gina stormed out, making a lot of noise. Apparently, she was a well-to-do young lady. Joseph was left alone, stunned. Taking the opportunity, I whispered in his ear. Serves you right. A single, jobless, poor guy. Joseph, shocked and tearful, sat down on the floor. Phil and I left him there and walked away. I later heard through rumors that Joseph and Gina indeed got divorced. Gina's parents, who ran a construction company, were furious. Joseph, who had moved into their family as a son-in-law, was kicked out with nothing. Since then, Joseph has been living in a rundown apartment, struggling alone. Working day and night in manual labor. No matter how hard Joseph's situation becomes, I will never forgive him. Nor do I have any sympathy for him. As for me, I continue to live a peaceful and happy life with Phil. I'm eternally grateful to my father, who helped me when I was struggling with life's choices. And to Phil, who loves me wholeheartedly and taught me what a happy marriage is. And now, I've recently discovered that I'm pregnant. Phil is overjoyed about the baby that's on the way. Together with our growing family, I want to continue living a happy life.